our next guest. It's Michelle Caruso. She's running against AOC. But let me read the rest of the comments. And I hope that answers your question, Karen Cole, to a certain point. Sharma said she loved the comment. Skill of Fortitude. Lisa Best said yes. Janelle Brighton tuned in. Ty Hardy was tuned in. Janelle said, what is it going to take to stop the killing? That's what
Hello,
we've all been
Michelle. I'm
addressing.
sorry I have to leave. I have to do an interview with ABC and CBS. So I gotta go.
To me, it's your show. So you do it.
Right.
If you can, Damien, get the video so we can put it up or whatever. So,
Well, I have no clue.
No, whenever they send the link, whenever they post whatever, just send it to me.
Okay.
All right. If you hold on one more second, Michelle, I'm just going to read the rest of the comments from the people who tuned in. We had Sonia Pruitt Wiggins, who's the president of the National Black Police Association. We were dealing a little bit with what's going on nationally. And my lovely co-host, Lorraine Lopez, is dealing with what's going on locally in the city of Yonkers currently right now. So a couple more comments. DJ Etc. What's going on? He tuned in. Daniel Terry tuned in. Ken Bright tuned in. Rabab, how you doing, Rabab? She said hello. Charmin, Leon Evans, again, Cleveland police officer. She said consent decree. She's and agreeing with the consent decree. She said there's a judge assigned in a consent decree. Lorraine, Susie's watching. Shout out to Susie, your sister.
I love you, Susie.
Shout out to Leda Castillo. I always mispronounce your last name and I pronounce. I'm sorry. Nancy, Kata Maldonado.
Hello, sis.
She said, thank you all for always being supportive. Brian Harad's tuned in. Guy Harris is tuned in. And again, we are switching lanes right now.
Before we switch, I need to say something,
AJ. We are getting ready to switch lanes right now. And this is an important conversation. And I have to do this balancing act because normally when we have situations like this, we would bounce the candidate running and we would just continue the whole show about this. But there's also a primary that's very instrumental coming up in less than a month. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to so balance the act. There is way more that needs to be said that can be said within that hour. And again, we will continue this conversation because this is what we do. So, Lorraine, last words about the last topic.
Okay, before we switch up, I need to speak about Yonkers.
Briefly, yes, briefly, then we can continue.
Okay, briefly. We got a lot of protests going on right now. I want to be clear that I support the Yonkers Police Commissioner. I support him, and I support the mayor because there are protests going on. They are listening. They are willing to listen. Now that we've got their attention, let's focus on what do we change and how do we heal. That's all I'm saying. And reach out to me, Lorraine Lopez, reach out to AJ if you want to be part of this Yonkers movement. But don't go out there protest. Don't go out there and riot and not have a demand. The demands will be met. They're listening. Don't go out there just for the bullshit. Go out there now that you got their attention. Okay, you wanted to work together? Let's work together. Let's do this.
Last words on all of that.
That's all I gotta say.
That's Lorraine's position. I hold all police commissioners accountable. And I want to say that I also do agree with Lorraine on the fact that we go back into the marching, the protesting, which is the beginning of all this, and then, you know, all the other stuff on top of that. And we go back and we look at people like Martin Luther King Jr. as the what we pull upon to justify our marching and stuff. But Martin Luther King, all of his march and all of his protest was to change legislation. Like, there was a plan. Like, when they stayed off the bus, the plan was so that it was no longer illegal for them to sit wherever they wanted to sit on the bus. They stayed off the bus for over a year and a half. Then people didn't get to make it the rule because it was the right thing to do. They was about to go bankrupt if they went any longer.
Yeah.
So it was like, let them sit anywhere they want, just get them back on the bus. You understand what I'm saying? There was other things like the Voting Rights Act and the other things that were passed through, but he was also working alongside the president with a list of demands. And he was like, you know, I can't keep telling these people to calm down and you're not giving anything. And he was like, you know, and he was going back and forth. And there was a list of demands. Now, he didn't get hardly probably close to a third of what they asked for, a tenth of what they asked for, but he was able to get something. But the point is, though, you can shut the Brooklyn Bridge down today. People gonna go to work tomorrow. So you inconvenienced a few people, and for people that don't live in the area, they don't care. As long as the bridge is free tomorrow, so they can go to work, they don't care right now. So there has to be it has to also be a demand, a list of demands. You should know what the heads of these organizations that are doing the protest should already be working on a list of, so what we would like, not you talking about what we don't have, we already know all that. Talking about what's wrong, we already know that. Bringing those things up and using this to bring light to that is great, but there has to be, or else, to quote the late great Hafiz Muhammad, who's been on our show several times, rest in peace, from the Nation of Islam, there has to be or else.
That's what I'm saying.
We want you to do these things or else. And if there is no or else, which means we're going to vote you out, we're going to do whatever. And to quote, I wanted to quote Killer Mike was put out a great he did a great speech for the city of Atlanta. And Michelle, if you give me 1 second, I want to end with the.
You take as long as you want, and we can continue this conversation. I'm happy to talk about it.
Right. I'm going to ask you what you think, but I want to get. I want to definitely get this this one quote in, because I think, and I played the video again. The video is on Black Westchester, and I will share the link for all of you, so that you can watch the video in full itself, the 8-minute video. But what he said is, yes, I'm mad as hell. I woke up wanting to see the world burn yesterday. I'm tired of seeing Black men die. But even though he was mad as hell, he urged the need to hold elected officials and politicians' feet to the fire. He told those who were angry to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize, and hold their politicians' feet to the fire. He said, it's time to beat up the prosecutors you don't like at the voting booth. It's time to hold the mayoral office accountable, the chiefs and the deputy chiefs and the commissioners, I will add. He said, this is what we have to do. We have to use our bully pulpit. We have to use our people. We are the reason that these people are in office, because we voted for them. The police department, and let me be clear, I shouldn't have to say this 6 years later. We're going on our 6-year anniversary. I should no longer have to say this, but we are not anti-police. We are anti-bad actors and people who use their authority to abuse our communities. And I don't care what you look like, because there's Black police that we've gone after, because some of them are worse than the white police. So this is not a white police thing, and this is not an all police thing. But you all know people who work in your departments who should not be in your departments. And we need you to start stepping up. This is what Sonia said. She said the one thing she hasn't heard from any of her counterparts was, if I see somebody doing my department, it's going to be me and them, or I'm going to do this about it. Like, she didn't hear that. She heard every one of her people around her say, this is a shame. This shouldn't happen. I'm angry. But no one said, if this happened in this department, there's going to be something, and we're going to put an end to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we need, our good law enforcement to do this, and we need to get these bad apples out. Because in any scenario of the bad apple scenario, the bad apple does ruin the bunch. It could be a rotten apple will make everything around it rotten. So we need, you see, and lastly about that, like the sister in, I think, Buffalo, who was on our panel, How to Police the Black Community last, part 2, she stood up and she stopped her fellow officer from excessive force, and she was fired. And the community should be behind her, because that's what we're asking our police to do. And when we have one that does it, we don't have their back. So that's why others probably don't do it. You understand what I'm saying? So we as a community need to have the back of those who do have that will go forth and do that. You understand what I'm saying? And we need more officers to do that. Now, with that, I want to introduce our candidate. Wait. Lorraine, I'm on a time constraint, and we can still talk, but I have to introduce our candidate. We have a candidate running.
Hey, okay. All right. Okay, I'm with that.
We have a
But
candidate
there's
running.
stuff going on in the office that I still need to be addressed.
Lorraine, and it can, and it's time. Let me host the show, please. And we have a candidate running for Lorraine. We have a candidate running in the New York's 14th Congressional District, which is the Bronx and Queens, am I?
Yeah, exactly.
And she's just so happens what made her even more intriguing to me. She's running against the often talked about AOC, who even the president talks about every 5 minutes. They part of the squad and all of this other stuff, and people talk about she is taking over the party, and she's even been discussed in discussions that if Bernie won the nomination, that she was possibly his vice presidential pick. Running against someone, and she does have a lot of media behind her, and there is some love behind her, and there's probably on the other side of things too. Running against someone like that, I wanted to meet the person who wanted to run against her and ask you why. So I want to introduce to the people before politics, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and I'm so thank you for having your name behind you so I can read your last name properly and not mess it up. And I'm going to keep it real, because I've been calling you MCC. I've been calling you MCC, and you know.
They've been calling me MCC. My previous job, they called me MCC for 21 years.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So why are you running? Why are you picking this time to run? And why are you running against AOC?
Because AOC is MIA.
Okay.
She is bad for the Times. She is bad for New York, and she is bad for our neighborhoods. She threw away 25,000 jobs, and we are going through now an economic crisis after the health crisis. And imagine if we had those 25,000 jobs that she pushed out, we would have a leg up. People could start talking about going back to work.
Are we talking about the Amazon?
Talking about the Amazon jobs, yeah.
Okay.
And then she voted against $75 billion for hospitals. She voted against $25 billion for coronavirus testing. She voted against hundreds of billions of dollars for the Paycheck Protection Program, which would keep people employed. So she says she cares about people, and yet when given the opportunity to do anything, she works against us. She works against my neighbors. She works against my community. I am just the opposite. I am for jobs. I am for helping deliver healthcare resources, helping people get back to work after this terrible, terrible pandemic that has just wrought so much. The stuff I see every day. We have modern day breadlines here, AJ and Lorraine. It's terrible. People are desperate. And what does she do? She works against them. That's why I'm in this race, to work for people, and I will be present. She always complained about our predecessor here, that he didn't drink our water, didn't breathe our air, didn't educate his children here. But remember this, at the height of the crisis, and she herself admits her constituents were the hardest hit in the entire country. At the height of the crisis, Congress wasn't in session. She didn't come home. She stayed in her apartment in DC with a Whole Foods in the lobby. And I bring that up because it was really hard to get food here. If you had the money to go to a supermarket, you had to wait hours to get in because of the social distancing requirements. Does this sound like somebody who's present, who promised she was going to be here more often than her predecessor, and at the moment when we needed her most, she didn't come home? I will be here.
Now, I want to say two things. We try our best in races to bring both candidates, or in other races, as many of the candidates in the Democratic primary. And we are reaching out to her, and I'm sure that we promoted this, so I'm sure someone in her camp or one of her supporters are watching this. So we just need that campaign to contact us so we can talk to her and let her present her side. Now, I will say, that being said, what I found astonishing, because I did not really monitor that district much. We have so much going on, as you see how passionate with Lorraine is about Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and all the cities in Westchester, plus what's going on nationally and stuff. I was not watching that district. But once I started to promote that you were coming on, let's just say, I'm not going to say it was overwhelming, and I'm not going to say it was just everyone, but there was more people than I thought that started to complain good because she hasn't been here, or some of the things that you said, but on various other, saying it different ways in their own way and stuff. And I was surprised. I was surprised to hear that, because I only really knew what I saw on MSNBC and what we see on the news and the things that she's doing and the things that she spoke up on. So
all your friends in the Bronx were telling you about how she never opened a constituent services office in her district in the Bronx. She never opened one. And
I saw Lorraine's slide. I saw her eyes light up, because Lorraine used to be, she actually was the first Latino city councilwoman in Yonkers, and that's what she did. So go ahead, Lorraine.
It wasn't, I didn't do that under the auspices of the city council. I also worked for 25 years under 2 Republican administrations, and I oversaw the Office of Human Rights and the Department of Constituent Services.
Good for you.
Let me just say this. Congratulations on your salmon.
Oh, thank you.
She got endorsed by Sam. I don't know, what was it, yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. I've done my research. I'm following you. I see what you've done. Right now, currently, I'm a Democrat. And I became a Democrat, but it was with protests. It was with protests under the Trump administration, because I still have some Republican values in me. And I was late a lot with you. I was a city councilwoman in the city of Yonkers and all that other good stuff. But I kind of see that Ms. Cortez, she got into office, and this is as real as I can be. She's whining. She's a crybaby. It's all about, oh my God, isn't it? What are your solutions? I honestly can relate more with you than I can with her. As a woman, as a Latino woman,
Thank you.
I can relate more with you than her. If we come on the if she comes on the show, I'll tell her too.
We have one comment already from somebody I know. My cousin. This is called my cousin. This is my sister's, my brother-in-law's cousin, but my cousin. His name is Richard Davis, and he said, "Thank you, MCC, for informing us more here. I live in the Bronx." And Rich, if you have any questions for her, please type them, and we will ask her. So I want to give you a chance, even though we moved on from the thing, from what's going on nationally and locally with the George Floyd situation. what is the temperature of your district about all of that? Are there any protests or anything? Is there any? I mean, I'm hearing about Brooklyn and Manhattan more. I'm not really hearing about what's going on in the Bronx or Queens at all. If there's any uprisings, if there's any damage to the police, I'm not hearing
Been
that.
attacked by COVID.
So can you speak?
Yeah, so there were peaceful protests in Jackson Heights yesterday. It started at Diversity Plaza and then they marched. And my understanding is people stayed late into the night. But you're right, the biggest action was in Brooklyn, and there's another event happening this afternoon. I will say that, like the rest of the country, people are very angry, so angry. We watched a man die on camera at the hands of police. And to the point that you were making earlier, Lorraine, when you were talking about, will anybody else say, don't do that? There were other officers there, and they didn't tell him to stop.
Right, and they have a duty to intervene.
They have a duty to intervene.
That's why they were fired for not,
Right.
acting on their duty to intervene.
I attended Congressional church this morning via Zoom, just like this, and the Reverend there, Reverend Brantley, and because I'm mentioning his name, he did not endorse me. He allows anyone to come and speak who wants to address his congregation if they're running for office, and I was grateful for that. But he said something very sad and yet very eloquent that I thought was very appropriate. He said, our nation is at war with our soul, that we have this founding based on freedom and yet also on slavery, this dichotomy that we still live with today and drives so many problems that we have today. And we see them in the coronavirus with the healthcare pandemic hit Blacks and Latinos disproportionately, enormously compared to the rest of the population. And we can talk about, we all know the historical reasons why that would be. And then on top of that, the economic pandemic hits harder here. And then there's the permanent pandemic that our Black community feels, that our brown communities feel about racial injustice. Yeah. It's been going on for so long. So everything I'm hearing from you, I'm hearing from my neighbors, I'm hearing from my community here about how frustrated and angry they are about what happened, and they want accountability. Your point about the ask, what do you want? Okay, so we have this problem. I thought Governor Cuomo had a great point today, I don't know if you watched him, but an independent authority to investigate these kind of matters rather than an internal review is important. Someone outside and independent is a first step to making sure that justice happens. And I applaud him for telling Attorney General Letitia James she's got to come back in 30 days with an investigation analysis of what's been happening in the last couple of days here when it comes to the violence and what's been happening with some of the disturbing videos we saw related to the police. So that's an ask, an independent authority to look into these situations.
Damon had to go, and I'm posting, and I think I sent it to you, but if not, I will send it to you. He actually posted a challenge to elected officials to pass police criminality laws. Richard Davis also mentioned that we need a change in legislation. I'll make sure that you see it specifically, but
sure.
for the question, if elected, and with the climate of what we just came, what would you do as far as, see, we discussed policy against legislation. Is NYPD policy to ban the chokehold, but it's not against the law. So then he didn't go to jail. What would you do if elected to help with legislation to criminalize that, police criminality?
Decriminalize it.
To criminalize the behavior, to legislate it.
I got you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I think Cuomo's idea about an independent authority looking at these things is extremely important, so that way you can have accountability. What people want is accountability, right? And what's happened up until now is the local prosecutors, they always work very closely with police officers, and it's hard to know whether or not you can have someone who is not conflicted when they are investigating the situation. Mm-hmm. So an independent authority who looks at these things, I think, gets you closer to answers and to justice. The other thing, though, that is really important is economic justice. We got to get people back to work and into good jobs and a good education that helps people get good jobs. And that is one of the greatest frustrations that I hear about over and over again. For example, the loss of the Amazon jobs. People want to work.
I was gonna ask you about that. Please speak on that. Yes, I was gonna ask you about that.
But
Well-
before we get there, though, I do want to get back to the actual question. Again, having independent thing is good, but
Sure.
it's not, there's nothing in that
Law.
is against the law. Like, if you violate these procedures, it is against the law. Then automatically you can be charged with that law, because and this is what will happen to you if you violate these things. That's what's the missing part, because we can keep talking, and Cuomo did already do the independent thing and made the AG's office to go in, and which he didn't need to do, because that is the job of the AG, to investigate anything he wants. He does not need Cuomo's permission to do that. So that kind of was symbolism without substance, and that's what we're trying to get past. What about actual legislation? Because once it's a law, then we're talking you broke the law.
Right. Well, there has to be something that's done that holds officers accountable when they commit the atrocities that we saw in Minneapolis, right? I mean, 3 officers not charged. So I would be open to looking at anything that would ensure that what happened there doesn't happen again. And the way that happens is they know that they're going to be held accountable to a standard that's going to be punishing to them. I mean, you have to get at the core of, when I watch the video, what is in his heart and in his mind that even after George Floyd is lying still, he keeps his knee there for 2 minutes and 43 seconds. What's happening there?
Well, he also had 19 previous offenses, one that led to the killing of someone, and one that was an unfatal shooting of a man in his bathroom in his house, in the shot in the stomach.
The
Yeah,
shooting, 41 shots. 41 shots.
So if there had been accountability earlier, we wouldn't be here today.
Right. And that's why I read the thing in the beginning, if you watch this from the beginning, from Michelle Alexander, because what I'm not allowing on the show right now, I don't want anyone, candidate, elected official, anyone, to continue to tell us what they've been telling us over and over for the last. This is why the youth and everybody is upset right now, because in their lifetime, they have never seen, they've seen a system that has failed them again and again and again and again. And they've seen people, our generation was told by the previous generation, go and let the system handle it. Let the system handle it. And some of us actually listen to that. This next generation is not trying to hear that, because it didn't work when we let the system listen. It hasn't worked their entire life. They have never seen what justice, they don't even know what justice looks like.
But then,
Let
okay.
the candidate.
The one thing I would say that will be different with this generation is technology. We all
And
want
solutions.
it. We saw it. We saw it all happened, right? On camera.
We saw Eric Garner.
In the past, you had he said.
No, we saw Eric Garner.
Okay. All right. Point taken. You're right. Yes.
So
AJ,
what
let me know
are
when I
we
can
going to
speak.
do different? What is different that our elected officials and our candidates running are going to bring us that we never had before? Because we can't do anything.
Accountable.
Huh?
Laws that hold them accountable.
And that's what I'm trying to get to. What would you do if you were elected? What could you do?
We've got to push laws that lead to accountability. And the details of that have to be worked out. But absolutely something that raises the bar beyond what's been happening, because what's been happening isn't good enough. And you're right. That's why people are so angry.
And also one last thing too, we didn't talk about, and coronavirus decimated your district. Like coronavirus hit your district very, very, very hard. And for people now in the communities that hit the hardest, the Black community, the minority community, for them to come out in the middle of this, defying all social distance and everything.
It's serious.
This really means a lot to them.
Yeah.
But we're the ones dying, and we're still coming out like that in numbers. And I wanted to give you a chance because I know Queens is in your district, and Queens, the home of Donald Trump, his neighborhood he grew up in, got hit the hardest, and we don't hear him say nothing about it. But anyway, in the 5 boroughs, yes, and it got hit the hardest. So what can you speak a little bit about that, and what can we put in place? Because this won't be the last one. There will be another pandemic. What can we put in place to combat this better when we don't have national leadership? What can you do in your district?
Well, first of all, you've got to be present. You've got to help immediately when you can. Unlike my opponent who didn't come home, right? You're right, this district has been devastated. I drove by Elmhurst Hospital every day and was just devastated to see the lines, hundreds of people in line at the height of the crisis, trying to get tested, trying to get care. We have to deliver more financial resources to public health so that when we have a pandemic, people can get the help they need immediately. And that would be, one way I would do that is to vote for the stimulus bill that she voted against. Vote for $75 billion for hospitals, vote for $25 billion for coronavirus testing. Don't fight with Nancy Pelosi, who's trying to help. Work with her, work within the party. We need unity at every level here. And we're seeing that, by the way, when we talked about the protests in Jackson Heights today, you can look on my Twitter feed, one of the police officers there walked with the protesters, took a knee with the protesters.
They've been kneeling, yes. They've been kneeling, yes.
It's solidarity.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Unity. That's why text unity to Caruso-Cabrera, because that's what we need right now. We need to all be working together. It's a matter of tone and attitude. My opponent is divisive and polarizing. Everything is about driving wedges between people, driving wedges in the party, and not actually working for people. Why else would you be the only Democrat who votes against a bill that has money for hospitals, that has money for healthcare?
I want to stop you. I want to interrupt real quick.
Come on, AJ, give me a chance.
Lorraine, let me host the show. Thank you. Let me host
you.
the show, please. Everybody on the screen. Everybody on the screen is seeing another person, and I wanted to acknowledge this is Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. And since since Damon couldn't be here, having Kenneth on is just like having Damon on. So,
this is like Lorraine, a birthday celebration for me.
So yes. Kenneth, while we did move forward, we have a candidate on, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera. She's running against AOC in the district that's for the Bronx and Queens. And one of the things I did just ask her before you tuned in, I don't know if you saw, was what Damon's challenge on passing legislation, that criminalizes this. The reason I bring this up, Michelle, Kenneth's father was killed by the White Plains Police Department, if you're not familiar with that. And
you did an episode a couple of weeks ago about this.
Yes. And there has been no justice yet. So we're pushing legislation. And the White Plains Police Commissioner just got on. There was a rally in White Plains Friday, and with the camera in his face, he said the words that these kind of actions would never happen by his officers in the department that killed Kenneth Chamberlain's father.
He lied.
On a welfare call where they were supposed to be checking on his welfare because he hit his life alert button, and that is why the police were called. And they broke down his door, tased him, beanbagged him, and shot him, called him the N-word and demeaned his military history and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this young man who is his son, who, unlike me, might be on some real F the police mentality right now, has started the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform and is working with police departments all over the,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, as well as victims, other victims of that. So Kenneth, if you have any questions for Michelle about criminal justice and what she would do if she got elected.
Well,
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yo, praise be to you, my brother.
listen,
Praise be to you.
I was on another panel discussion and it just ended and I jumped over onto this one. So I was listening to some of the conversations and I hear, you know, the talk of accountability and that's great, you know, because, you know, when we often talk about anything pertaining to the rule of law, there has to be accountability across the board as far as these police officers are concerned. Even in these courts, because some of these judges are pro-police and they're making decisions that are, you know, in favor of the police, and they're not looking at the case in its entirety. You know, a perfect example would be in my father's case, we have actual audio where the police officers are on audio calling my father a nigger moments before they kill him. And we watch a judge throw it out in federal court and say that it's just a word, but it goes to the mindset of the officers. On a local level, on the county level, then District Attorney was Janet D. Fior. She said she didn't deny that it was used, but she justified it. So she said it was used as a tactic to distract my father. You know, and I've often said that if Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s name was Kenneth Weinstein, Kenneth Cohen, and Kenneth Greenberg, it might be a different outlook. Why? Because we've seen a county become outraged when things have happened in the Jewish community. Example, swastikas painted on the Bronx River Parkway walkway, vandalizing the Holocaust Memorial, and you see all these elected officials come out, you see all these clergy come out, and they are all denouncing this, they're calling it a hate crime. But when a 68-year-old man is shot and killed in his home and called a nigger moments before it happened, there's no outrage. So the rule of law doesn't apply. And we know that we've seen a system of government in place that places no value on our lives. I often quote that all the time, and I say the government, its agents and officials are to be held to the same set of rules that enables a fair and functioning society. And until we see that, you're going to see this outrage. But on top of that, we see these narratives that are put out there. And see, my biggest thing is that if I lie or give false testimony, I'm charged for that.
Yeah.
These police officers, the same thing should happen when it's found out that they've given false testimony or written these false narratives, you know, trying to demonize individuals and make a victim look like a suspect. So, I mean, I really don't have too many questions because I don't want to go backwards and start asking you things that you may have already answered. But I will say that one of the things that I would like to see in terms of legislation is that when these officers are caught and it's found out that they lied giving testimony in crucial cases and things like this, that there needs to be some type of mandatory minimum sentence for these officers when this happens. That they need to be charged because you are held to a higher standard. You have the power of life and death in your hands. Okay, so you've been given that responsibility and you swore an oath. So you should be held to a higher standard. So again, I'm not gonna come in and start trying to go into all of these different things or start asking you, you know, all these questions.
But it's okay if you do. It's okay if you do.
Go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, first, Kenneth is my brother's name, so it's one of my favorite names. Thank you so much for telling me your story. And what I hear you saying, and I think is spot on, is that people behave differently if they know there are consequences to their actions. And what you want are for there to be consequences for actions. And historically, there haven't been consequences for actions. And I think that that's absolutely correct, what you're driving toward. Because once people know, oh, I could get in trouble for this, they may not do it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's the simple thing. This time around, what everybody has watched with their eyes happen for 8 minutes, I think we are at a moment where Governor Cuomo has talked about, Representative John Lewis has talked about, we've talked about a moment where that ask that AJ was talking about, that ask that you've got, this is the moment for that ask where there can be real change. That then leads to someone in their heart, in their head and their heart saying, no, I won't do this. They shouldn't want to do it ever, but to know that there are consequences to actions will change outcomes.
See,
Brother Kenneth, let me ask you a question. Is there room for it to be revisited?
well, we are in the appeal process right now, and the low-hanging fruit is the Fourth Amendment. The fact that you were supposed to be protected from illegal search and seizure. These officers, you know, had they not broken down his door and gone in there, he probably would have been alive today. We know that there are 3 times that you can enter a person's home. Warrant, permission, or exigent circumstances. They didn't have any of those 3 when they made entry into my father's home. Okay? And again, I always go back to these things. It is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable search and seizure, and that no warrant shall issue without probable cause. They did not have that. So we are in the appeal process. It's been 2 years. We are still waiting for a decision. It's more of a hurry up and wait, but I can't believe or don't want to believe that they've had us waiting 2 years to say that we didn't win this appeal. Because more times than not, what we have seen is that when you're going to lose an appeal, it just comes through right away, and they just give you the decision and tell you why. You know, but I think that right now, I will definitely agree is that we are at a point right now, because of what people witnessed on this social media platform, people are tired of seeing Black people dying at the hands of law enforcement, and it has really sunk in now. And one of the biggest things that I find is beautiful about this is the fact that when you look out there and you see people on the front lines, it is a diverse group of people. It is not just Black people out there saying you're killing Black people. You have white people out there saying, no, you're killing Black people, and you have to stop doing that.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
that we are
Amen.
2.5 times more likely to be killed, either being compliant or non-compliant. Either way, my hands up will get me killed, my hands down will get me killed. Me dressed in a suit can get me killed. Me dressed with a hoodie on can get me killed. Okay, because I can't change the color of my skin. So this is what is beautiful when you look out there and you see such a diverse group of people out there demanding accountability and standing in solidarity for one common cause. And I'm hoping and praying that it's going to wake people up. You know, but I see a lot of the media doing here is they're focusing on the negative aspects of this, talking about, oh, they're looting, they're rioting, they're, you know, but I see police officers ramming gates and running over innocent protesters. This is what I see. I see police officers pushing a young woman down because she might be yelling or screaming. You know, again, they're supposed to be held to a higher standard, and this is not happening. You know, so, and then they'll put these narratives out and say, well, the reason the officer rammed the gate was because there was a bag on the top of the car that was on fire, so that's why he rammed the gate. Really? You know, then you see people busting out windows in storefronts, and then it's alleged that the person that was doing it was a police officer dressed up as a protester.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
then you see another video where a guy is being interviewed by the news and he's saying, I was beat up by 2 black guys because I yelled all lives matter. But then all of a sudden, a video surfaces of this guy standing outside his vehicle with a compound bow in his hand, yelling,
Yes.
screaming,
Yes.
and pointing it at people,
Yes.
ready to let the arrow go at
Yes.
somebody.
Yes.
So it's important that we don't just automatically go with these narratives that we see out
Yes.
there.
Can I ask you guys a question?
That
Can I
that's
ask you a
it.
question?
Yes.
As a
Absolutely.
former reporter, what did you think of them arresting the CNN reporter in the middle of all that in Minneapolis?
You know,
I'll let you answer that one. Go ahead.
I watched it live. I have an
You know,
answer.
I just want to say that it's unfortunate that it happened. I'm gonna be very politically correct on this.
I'm not.
It's
I got an answer to that.
It's unfortunate that it happened, but in some respects, it's a good thing it happened because people can see that this is just an institutional thing, a systemic issue, that these police feel like it's a do as I say, not as I do. I can do whatever I want to. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you work for. In any other profession, you couldn't get away with that. In any other profession.
All right,
you
can I
couldn't
just
get
say this?
You couldn't get away with it. I couldn't get away with it. I work in social work. I couldn't hurl racial slurs at somebody and just put my hands on them and try to justify that. I'm going to get fired immediately.
Right.
Can I just say this?
Well,
I watched it live while it was going on in CNN. It was surreal. But let me just say this. 1 block away, a white reporter for CNN covering the same exact scenario was treated with courtesy, respect, and was allowed to broadcast. Something to think about right there.
Well,
I watched it live. It
my
was
problem-
surreal.
my
CNN admitted it too.
My problem was that it was like, first off, they say they were questioning if he was really a reporter
They
or if he
lied.
had
They
the right,
lied.
if he had the right to be there.
Yeah, microphone.
Most amateur or whoever do not have professional camera equipment. He had his badge, he had his mic on, he was live. You understand what I'm saying? He explained that, and he did say, if this is not where you want me to stand, where is it that you want me to stand? He said that 3 times when they was arresting him, and he asked, why are you arresting me? I had a problem with that. Shout out to a couple of people that's listening. Wayne Robinson, Marista Monet, Mark Munich, and the incomparable Biz Marquis. What's going on, sir? What's going on? Thank you for all those mixes, Biz, because they've been getting me through. So you're running at it, and this is not the regular, normal campaign interview, but this is not a normal time. I mean, not only are you dealing with the corona situation, which never ended, and I think, unfortunately, we're going to see more of an outbreak because of some of the protests, because I've seen many of them without masks on, and they're right bumped up against each other. And, you know, if somebody's asymptomatic and didn't know it, there's going to be a lot of people in that area that's going to get sick from that. And then they're going to take it home. So you know, you know, we need to, for those who pray, we need to pray over that situation. But then you know, you have this going on, so it's definitely not the norm.
It's not a typical campaign, but it's
right.
it's.
Let me actually, okay, speak, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say from day one, when the coronavirus started to break, so to speak, we changed everything completely. I wanted to change everything completely. We started out with how can we help? We secured masks. We secured hand sanitizer. We started securing food for the ICU unit at Mount Sinai Astoria. We delivered 20,000 masks to various homes for the elderly, for churches that were serving the neediest, that had food pantry lines out the door. And so we made it a campaign about helping people because I wanted to demonstrate from day one that I would be present and I would be hands-on. Because as I told you earlier, AOC is MIA. She's always MIA. And to have me be out there, I want people to know that's how I campaign and that's how I will be as a legislator as well. So did COVID change the campaign? It certainly did, but it was something that brought us to helping people in a very direct way as often as we could. And that's going to be the difference between she and I, and I'm convinced voters will see that because she hasn't been around.
I want to give you a chance to at least speak on some of your platform, you know, what you're here for, why people should vote for you, and share your website, social media, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll start with that.
Okay, why you should vote for me? Think of me and think of jobs, bringing jobs to Queens and the Bronx. People need to get back to work. My neighbors need to get back to work. When you see the lines at the food pantries, it's just horrific. Remember, my opponent threw away 25,000 jobs. She voted against hundreds of billions for the paycheck protection program. She voted against jobs. I will always be for jobs. That's what we need to get people back to work. Delivering healthcare outcomes. More resources for public health. It's horrible what Elmhurst Hospital went through and what Jacobi Hospital went through. We have to get them more money so that when we have crisis like this, people can be served. To see the lines out the door, to see the desperation that I saw in people was terrible. And third, unity within the Democratic Party. My opponent is divisive and polarizing within the Democratic Party. She's always driving us apart rather than bringing us together. We need unity. We need unity to get past the pandemic. We need unity in order to bring jobs. We need unity in order to achieve the changes that you candidates are demanding. That's what we need. So the choice couldn't be more stark, the difference between she and I. I am on the front lines, she's been on the sidelines. I am about unity, she's about division. She's all about her national celebrity. Everything she does, she says she voted against that stimulus bill, the only Democrat, because she cares so much? No, it's because she always wants to be in the headlines. It's not me. I want to roll up my sleeves, get to work, open a constituent services office in the Bronx, day one, in the district, which she never did, and actually help people directly. That's the difference.
AJ, can I speak?
Wait, social media,
AJ,
website?
come on.
Oh my God, yeah. MichelleCC2020.com is my website, and you can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and you can get updated on my campaign by texting Unity to the number that you see behind me.
Lorraine, if you have a question for the candidate, this is a candidate interview. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is, sir. And that's what I'm trying to do, sir. Thank you very much. Okay.
Right.
Couple of things. First of all, straight up, I support you. I relate with you. I relate with you. Okay, there are points, and while I'm saying that, let me say I'm sorry for the questions I'm gonna ask you, but I gotta ask them. All right. I got several questions for you. Some about policy and your district and stuff like that. But I need to ask a very important question right now. It's got to do with what's happening right now. If you had to choose between marching with protesters and standing in the podium as an elected official, which one would you choose? And tell me why, please.
Why couldn't you do both?
No, I'm asking you to choose either or. Because you can't be in two places at one time. And I'm sure you can support them both. But if you had to choose right now, because the people are listening, right now, which one would you choose?
Where I would stand? I would stand by.
Yes.
I would stand with the people. I want to stand with the people.
And why?
Why?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I
why?
got in this race to help people. I mean, you know, that's why you go into public service, because you want to help people. It's that simple. Look in people's eyes. What do you need? What can I do to help? That's why I want to hold constituent services hours myself, so that I can hear directly from people when I come home from Capitol Hill and say, what do you need? What, you know, in my former life as a reporter, there's two kinds of TV journalists. There are the TV journalists who never like to leave the studio. The lights are always perfect. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. That wasn't me. I was always out. I was the chief international correspondent for a reason, because it was on the road. Because the way you learn is you get out there and you talk directly to people, and you find out. You can only find out things up close. You can't stay inside like my opponent did when she didn't come home at the height of the crisis. You got to get out there. So that's I hope that answers your question. What's your next one?
Next question, Lorraine.
Okay. Next question is, she's been very progressive and she's got a lot of people behind her and stuff like that. Word is out that you are being funded, supported, by Republicans. I am not against that because all my friends are Republicans. I've been a Republican for a long time. I just changed my party because Trump is an asshole, you know, with all due respect. Okay, what do you say to the people? Because of what is out, everyone is saying she's being supported, she's being funded by Republicans. This is a Republican agenda. She's not in favor of the people. How do you respond to that?
I'm a Democrat. I have always been pro-choice, pro-same-sex marriage. I am extremely supportive of immigrants. It's one of the key reasons I got into the race, because I'm the daughter and the granddaughter of immigrants, and I believe in the American dream. I believe in labor's right to organize, and I believe we have to strengthen Social Security and Medicare dramatically, because people are going to rely on them when they retire, and they need that help. So I am a Democrat. I am funded by many, many Democrats. She should be wondering, why is it that so many Democrats want to fund me against her? Because she's the one who's not a Democrat. She's a Democratic socialist. Remember, she's the one, when asked about Joe Biden by New York Magazine, she groaned. They said it, she groaned, and she said, in any other country, we wouldn't be in the same party. And she's right. In every other country, she'd be in the Socialist Party. She's the one who's not a Democrat. I'm a Democrat.
Any more follow-up question, Lorraine? One more? No?
Let me. I
ahead,
just want to kind of interject there. First, let me just say that I've been on I've been getting a couple of texts, so I guess people see me on this this live feed.
Superstar.
And they and one is, interestingly enough, one is from the Bronx and one is from Queens.
Okay.
And they both said that they have seen you around, that you are very visible in the communities. So
That's been the
been the
goal.
So, I guess in that sense, kudos to you. Now, I'm a believer that, unlike my sister Lorraine here, you can be in both places at the same time,
Yeah, I'm working on that now. I'm learning.
Look at me, Lorraine. I'm all over the place. Okay?
I'm learning.
I'm not, I think that, a lot of times, even when people ask me about, elected positions and things like that, it comes down to where you can do the best work. Like, I don't personally feel I could do the best work in an elected position because, you know, although I'm very careful about things that come out my mouth, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, you know, whether you like it or not. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. And
Nobody can stop you.
I'm
Nobody
just
can
gonna
stop
get
you
right
if
to
they
the
wanted
point,
to.
and I'm gonna call it as I see it. But my problem that I have with elected officials, and I'm not saying that you did this, but this is what would turn me off from you, is if only around election time I see you. See, I need to see you other than election time.
Oh, yeah.
I need to see
You're
you.
talking about my opponent right now.
Yeah.
You're talking about my opponent.
So,
When I have been out, people tell me, they're like, you know what? We haven't seen her
you know,
ever since she got elected, and now suddenly she's showing up.
so,
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know,
It's true. It's true.
even the other day when we held the vigil for George Floyd in White Plains, the Westchester County District Attorney showed up. He doesn't show up to events. Why is he there? You know, and he's
election
actually
season.
speaking. Are you truly standing in solidarity with these people right now? Or are you
No.
just there for a paparazzi moment, for somebody to take a picture and say, look, you were there? And that
Yeah.
is the problem that I have with elected officials when they do that. You know, if I look up and I see you at different events all the time, and you show up to that, I have no problem with it. But I will challenge you if I say I haven't seen you, and now all of a sudden you pop up.
I expect you to.
So I will say kudos to you, because these are two people that I value their opinion. And if they would have told me anything other than this, if they said I don't see her, I would have told you that. You know, so they actually are saying that they do see you around.
And I will welcome the scrutiny when I am elected.
You know that a fantastic segue. Fantastic segue. Alessandra Ocasio. One of the things that her campaign is trying to highlight and trying to bring forth is the fact that you lived in Trump Towers prior to running, and then that you moved into the district to run. So therefore, you are not connected with the district, you're not aware what's going on with the people, and that you are basically a plant. How do you answer to that?
Well, that's pretty hilarious coming from somebody who was actually raised in Westchester and wasn't actually raised in the Bronx, okay?
Yeah, it's true.
So, you know, this isn't about where I used to live. This is about what I'm going to do and what I'm going to do for people. I'm talking to you from Sunnyside, Queens, and I love it. I love Queens and the Bronx, and I love New York. I wasn't born in New York, but I sure wish I was. And I was getting here as fast as I could. And I'm in this race because she is bad for New York. She is bad for the Times. She's bad for our neighborhoods. Look at her record. Drives out jobs, votes against healthcare, votes against PPP, and then also, by the way, voted to raise taxes. You know, Governor Cuomo's been begging to get rid of this SALT tax. If you own a house and you can't deduct now your state and local taxes anymore. She voted with the president on that. Again, she's always working against everyone in the party. It's terrible. We need somebody who's going to work for New York, who's going to make New York a great place to stay. Not
You know,
drive people
what's
away.
interesting is that Ms. Ocasio, she touts on her Facebook page, on her Congress page, on every other page she can think of. She talked about that she has been part of hundreds of legislation, bills, and so on. And when I did my research, what I found out was that the hundreds of bills that she touts that she's been involved in, She is just another congressperson with hundreds of others that have been their names added. And then when I did my research also, only 10 of the hundreds of bills that she's touted have come into fruition. None of them have been bills that she has introduced, and none of them have to do with the people. These are helping other folks in other cities. How do you respond to that, ma'am?
Well, I'm not surprised. I don't know if you saw
Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
I want you to respond because we so much into the George Floyd. Technically, we would be ending the show now. I'm extending it. I don't know how long you can stay, but I'm extending it to 8:30 if you can stay. If you and then I just so we're going to 8:30 because technically we would be signing off now, but we've spent so much time on George Floyd, so I wanted to get that. Now you can answer your question. And thank you everybody. Thank you everybody who's tuning in. We appreciate that. And also shout out to Pepsi Martinez, whose hat I was wearing. It just got warm though. Really nice hat. Thank you. Go ahead.
AJ, I'm gonna have to step off of
Step
this.
off, and I figured that.
I got another call I gotta get on.
Right.
But
any last words from you?
Get out there and vote.
June 23rd.
Most important words tonight. Most important words tonight.
Because it's gonna be tricky this year.
Yeah. Yo, Ken, thank you as always for tuning in, for just dropping in on us.
Much love, my brother.
Thank you.
Peace. Much
I'll
love.
see you soon. All right.
Bye.
Michelle, now the question.
So Lorraine, I'm not surprised. I don't know if you saw there was a story in the paper last week or the week before that nobody in the New York delegation wants to work with her. It's always
no, I didn't see that, but I did the research on her bills.
Yeah.
Which I think 3 have gone by, but they didn't really have anything to do with her district.
She's always talking about how bold her legislation is, but it's ineffectual if it actually never comes to fruition, right? You've got to do things that are real. For example, and one of the key things that a legislator does is, can you bring resources to the district for people who need help? For example, when it comes to climate change, the issues with the rising seawater, so much of the district is actually waterfront, right?
Yes.
Locust Point is dealing with flooding. Can we get them a seawall? Something like that, really tangible things that can make a difference for people who have homes that they've invested in, but they're worried now about their property values. What can be done to help them? Those are the ways I think about it. What are the real things that you can bring home and do for people? Things like, increased use of broadband and making sure we don't have broadband deserts based on what happened with the pandemic.
Especially for the school children.
Exactly. Schools too, right? Those are real things. They're going to negotiate an infrastructure bill. LaGuardia is in the district. Can we improve LaGuardia? Well, by the way, there's not many planes flying right now. Can we speed up the construction if we had the money and finally get through this, dramatic construction that's been so disruptive, but is necessary? So those are the ways I think about what I would do as a legislator. Real things for real people that help them in real ways.
How would you?
Real quick, I just want to also, again, I want to say, Black Westchester, we tried to get both sides. We tried to get the other candidates. So we are reaching out to the AOC camp. If anybody, and she is welcome. We would like to do an interview with her to give her, to make her case. And then for you, the voter, can make an informed decision by what you see and hear from your own eyes and ears. That was the purpose of all of this. So I mean, I don't want anybody to think that we're just bashing her. I'm not taking any side.
I'm not bashing her.
Let me finish. So Black West, so we are reaching out. So if anyone from the AOC campaign is watching this, or the supporters, share this with her. We would like to get her on next week, or in the next couple of weeks. Now, I want to get more back into the traditional, because again, we dealt with a lot of the George Floyd thing. Again, in a normal situation, we would have bumped the candidate and just had a full-on discussion about that. And I apologize for Lorraine for she wanted to talk more about the Yonkers issue, but I'm juggling this whole time thing. So, you know, it's not a normal situation. So, but I do want to get more back into the traditional questions about your district, why people should vote for you, not necessarily what she hasn't done. What will you do that she's not doing? Why, you know what I'm saying? Show me the difference. And the reason I say that, we hear voters, we always hear a candidate say, this person's not doing that, and this person's not doing that. And again, you are saying AOC said that, and then she's not doing it either. So tell me what you will do, not what she's not doing, what you will do for the community that needs to be done.
Bring jobs to the district. You know, when, from day one, when I got into this race, I heard from workers, from business owners, they want to see more jobs and better paying jobs. Let's go back to the Amazon situation where she pushed Amazon out. I had so many small businesses in the area say to me, wow, we thought we were going to have a real boom. Owner of a restaurant here, one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, says, yo pensé que iba a ser un boom. I thought we were going to have a boom. He was going to hire more waiters, more kitchen staff. Those are more jobs, right? So we got to bring jobs. I would do everything possible to bring jobs to the district. She has done everything possible to drive them away. Still, to this day, when we are handing out masks, when we are at the food pantry lines, people are asking me about jobs. When can they go back to work? As soon as it's safe, they are desperate to go back to work. Many of them can't get unemployment. Many of them didn't get that $1,200 check. And they're hungry and starving. They want to work. You didn't get it?
I ain't get no check. Go ahead.
Wow.
I got one.
So work and jobs, I want you to equate that with me. I will do everything possible. It's a real attitudinal shift. We are open to people who want to come and see the potential in Queens and the Bronx. I am not here to judge you and demonize you and tell you to go home and go away. I am here to welcome you, to help us get back on our feet. And that's a huge difference. Why would anybody come here now while she's still in office? Second,
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to add, because a listener, you know, sometimes you got to talk to your listener. So they were like, why do we care? She's not in Westchester, this is Black Westchester. Do you know what? Bronx borderlines and what happens in Bronx affects what happens in Westchester. You know what I'm saying?
Congress people vote together.
Yes. And you need to know what's going on in the areas around you.
That's right.
For your community as well. So that answers that question. But go ahead, right? Go to your second point, the second thing you make.
Healthcare. We've got to deliver more resources to the public health system. Bottom line, got to get more money to public hospitals like Jacobi and Elmhurst so that we don't ever see the crisis that we saw there, that everybody could see again on TV with their own eyes, hundreds of people in line desperate for healthcare because the hospital system was so overwhelmed. That cannot happen again. And that's federal government's job, is to help deliver resources to the right place and to the neediest places. And then I will be about unity within the Democratic Party. I am not going to be working against Nancy Pelosi like she does. I'm not going to be working against Governor Cuomo like she does. Remember, Governor Cuomo begged to get rid of this SALT tax, which means you can't deduct your state and local income tax if you own a home. It's suddenly become much more expensive to stay in New York. It's forcing a lot of people to leave New York. She voted with the president. She voted against Governor Cuomo. She voted to raise taxes on New Yorkers. When, by the way, I don't know if you saw in your research, Lorraine, she didn't pay her taxes. Do you see she still has an outstanding tax? Yeah. I mean, you know, she's a hypocrite every step of the way, whether it's taxes, whether it's the promise to come home, and she doesn't come home. But that's what I want you to associate with. Jobs, better money and more money for healthcare, and less divisiveness. less polarization. She is polarizing and divisive, and her ideas are bad for the times. She's bad for New York, and she's bad for our neighborhoods.
I want to interrupt one thing, and I just want to draw a distinction too. I do support a certain amount of divisiveness and going up against the establishment, because that's what I'm all about. You understand what I'm saying? But when it becomes,
I'm not surprised.
I guess that your point, and let me just ask you, your point is when it becomes that's all you do, and you're not even willing to work with people, you just want to be divisive, and you just want to be against this. That just because is that what you're
your name
speaking?
in the headlines because she wants her name in the headlines.
Right,
Yeah,
is that what you're speaking about?
After a while, it becomes about clout. It's not about the people anymore. It's about clout.
Well, that's what I was asking. Is that what you're describing? Because I just want to make it clear, I'm not, because there's some people that feel like I should never be divisive. I should never go up against establishment. I should never speak up against anything like that. And there's room for that. We need more people to do that, but I also work with those who don't have my best interests at heart if we can get somewhere on an issue. So you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what you're saying. It's getting to a point where that's all she does, not that it's bad to do it. And I wanted to get you to clear that up.
It's all about her celebrity. It's all about maintaining her national profile. And how about working on real things? You know, I talked about the seawalls. What about money for more technical training? Money for, right where I sit, we've got 2 technical high schools, an aviation high school and a technical high school. And we have 3 union locations here that are all about apprenticeship and training. Those are real things that we can do so that
for
youth, right, you can do for you, and you can work and buy a house, raise a family, sleep at night, knowing that you can pay your mortgage or your rent and get food on the table. Those are the things that I'm very concerned about and that I would most focus on.
We have a little less than 15 minutes left. I'm going to throw a couple of topics at you and see if we can answer them briefly so we can get as much stuff in as possible. Campaign reform. It's an issue that is important to me because I've seen even on the most local level, like a Mount Vernon library trustee level, in elections where good people can't get into office because other people who may not be as good can outspend them. And there is no campaign reform. So we don't always get the best candidate. You get somebody who through the means of their own or their supporters can almost buy their way into the seat.
Or can use a social media platform to get the vast majority of their money from outside the state, which is something that we see from my opponent. It is unfortunate, the need for money in politics. How you run without it, I don't know. I mean, it's so difficult. So I would welcome reform that makes it less costly to actually run, because then you're right, we could have a much larger group of people running with good ideas, rather than having to rely on people or have people who can raise money. I agree with the frustration about the money in politics.
Yeah.
Second one, income equality. For, against, which is thoughts?
Oh, I'm against income inequality.
Right.
But my plan for income inequality: jobs, good paying jobs, access to education and training that get people good paying jobs. That is an incredible way to improve the terrible levels of income inequality that we're seeing in the country. Good jobs, great work. That's what, and the other thing I would, something that's happened, and I know you want me to answer quickly, but I want to tell you a quick story about a friend of mine who had wanted to sell purses on 5th Avenue at a fancy shop. We would all know the name if I told you. And do you know what they told her? They told her no, because she didn't have a college degree. And I thought, wow, that is ridiculous, because my friend is very good.
Were they nice purses? Were they really nice purses? Like, could they be in a, could they,
Yeah,
no, not my point.
Give
No,
me the
no, no,
hookup
no, no, no,
and
no.
stuff.
My point was, were they of a quality that could be in that store, or were they not? Because sometimes
Doesn't matter, AJ.
No. Go ahead, because
No, the point I would make is that she would have been really good at selling these fancy purses.
Okay.
And you know what a person in sales
said
needs?
she couldn't work there, not that she couldn't sell.
She couldn't work there. They wouldn't let her work there.
I
They wouldn't
misunderstood
even
you. Okay.
interview her because she didn't have a college degree. That's ridiculous. When you're in sales, you know what you need? You need to know math, and you need a good course in ethics. That's what you need. But what's happening, the reason I give you that example is we're forcing people to get college degrees for jobs that shouldn't require it. And so people end up in debt for very bad reasons. And then they're frustrated and angry. And then we end up with income inequality because they're spending so much of their income paying back loans that maybe they should have never taken on, when they could have taken a good ethics course and been a good salesperson, or gone to a technical high school and gotten a real job in a union that pays very, very well, and you can live very well on those jobs.
Affordable housing. I hear a lot of elected officials and candidates talking about affordable housing, but they talk about a whole lot of housing that I can't afford. So your thoughts on affordable housing?
Yeah, we need more of it. There's a project that would bring 12,000 units right here to Queens. She walked away from the project. It's Sunnyside Yards. There's an advisory panel where she's supposed to sit on the advisory board. She walked away. She won't do it at all. It's another example of how divisive she is. It's her way or no way. That's ridiculous. It's a framework from the city. We have this huge area that could be something. And the city has been very thoughtful about what would we like it to be. We want it to be 100% affordable housing, and real affordable housing with very low income requirements to be able to go into this. And she won't even sit on the advisory board. How do you have a seat at the table? How do you have any input if you just walk away? Another example of how she's divisive. I would sit there and make sure that the community's demands, talking about demands, are met, which is people want Queens and the Bronx to be the welcoming place that it has been for more than 100 years, for the newly arrived, for people who are strivers, who want to make it in America, right? We have to work on that. And it takes work, and it takes working together.
My next topic is homelessness. Even in the best of times before coronavirus, before the loss of jobs, a lot of people were 2, 3, maybe 4 paychecks away from being homeless.
Yeah.
In Yonkers, we've covered a lot of homelessness and in detail. And I learned a lot in doing the homelessness stories. I know, as a journalist, we learn so much by the stories we do. We end up learning more and more. There's a whole nother category, the working homeless. They have jobs, the kids go to school every day, but they just can't afford to live somewhere, and that's being grown. Now with Corona, more jobs are being lost, and homelessness is more of a bigger problem in here, especially in Westchester, the richest county, one of the richest counties in the country. They claim they don't act like that homelessness exists. So people get pushed down to the lower Westchester borough cities, and if you get pushed anymore past Mount Vernon, you're in the Bronx, or past Yonkers, you're in the Bronx. So speak on homelessness.
Well, so what you're talking about with the working homeless, that's why affordable housing is so important, increasing the supply of housing, period, so that way there are more choices, and affordable housing is part of that, and it has to absolutely be a part of the solution there. If we don't, but also we got to get people back to work, because you're right. Westchester, they move to Bronx, move to Queens. If it's too expensive here, then they leave the state. Then we lose workers. We lose the tax base. It's an existential threat to New York, what is happening here. If we don't make it more affordable to stay here, people leave, and it becomes a very bad cycle.
Right, we can't afford to live in Long Island, you come to Queens and then you're out. So yeah. People like Long Island, people can't afford to live in that sort of stuff either. I have a question that actually is good, from a Steven Simpson.
Yours were good too.
No. I have questions, but I'm just saying this was something that I like. Stephen
Steve
Simpson said,
Simpson is
should-
from the
should-
Rotary Club of Yonkers.
okay. Should you be elected, give us 3 measurable deliverables that we can gauge you on in 6 months after the election. 6 months, in your first 6 months, I guess.
I'm going to open a constituent services office in the district in the Bronx.
My specialty, yes.
Yes. By the way, remember, she never opened one in the district, for those who are just joining us.
That's necessary.
Jobs. You will see me work tirelessly to bring jobs. I will reach out to every business leader I know to say, can you come here and help us get people back to work? And I will vote for all the bills that deliver healthcare resources to our district. Those are 3 measurables. And I promise to be present, to hold constituent services office hours myself. That's a 4th.
Healthcare seems to be something everyone talks about. So where do you fall in Medicare for all, the public option? Where do you fall? Where do you support?
So Medicare for All is about taking health insurance away from people who already like it, right? If you've been in a union, you have given up income through the years because you want, because you were negotiating for better benefits, including health insurance. Medicare for All removes that. It removes a key reason why a lot of people want to be in a union, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think if people have health insurance that they like, they should be able to keep it. President Obama had a much better idea, which is there are many people who don't get it through work. What can be done to make the individual buying a health insurance policy, how can we make it more affordable for individuals? We got to work on improving Obamacare.
Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start with, is to have many more choices when it comes to individuals who are out there buying it.
A comment that also goes with the affordable housing thing. Every New York, we have to redefine the notion of affordable housing. I read that because I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it says every New Yorker, everybody in this country, but it says every New Yorker has a right to an affordable home in a safe neighborhood. Question, I guess, realistic measurables and anticipation of gut-wrenching city budget cuts. I guess that was a comment on your mentionables. Is there anything I haven't asked you? We're coming to the close. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want everybody to know about you? You want, platform, anything you want to mention or you want to, that I haven't asked you?
Well, first of all, it's been great being on with you. I used to host a show, and you do a very good job, because as you know.
Thank you, yeah.
Damon, I got 2 questions. AJ, I got 2 questions before she goes.
Go ahead.
You're often a traffic cop, as you've noticed, when you host a show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Please go to my website and read more. I want to save time for Lorraine to ask her questions, michellcc2020.com, but associate me with somebody who's going to work to bring jobs, healthcare, unity to the party, and be present. So you can talk to me directly. I talk to people, not to Twitter. AOC is always MIA, but MCC will be at your side.
We have 3 minutes, Lorraine. You have 1 minute to get in whatever you're trying to get in.
Okay. You gotta answer these real
1 minute.
quick.
That's time. You have 1 minute.
Okay. These are real quick. Okay, real quick. People and children in the education system, will you secure money so that they can all have laptops? Because teaching now is not about school books, it's about technology. Will you work on that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Okay. I've been thinking intensely about, especially about broadband. Broadband is available in all of Queens, and yet a huge percentage of people here in Queens don't have it. Why? We have to figure out why. The city actually did a really deep examination of this question, and I talked to the author of the report to see, how can we make this go further? And we got to figure out why it is that, do we need to help if people don't have enough income to pay for broadband because it's expensive? Or sometimes parents don't think they need it. And we got to explain, no, you really need it. How can we help to make sure you get it? But yes, The hardware, it's the hardware and
It's the hardware.
the broadband, right, together.
Absolutely, it
Sure.
comes together,
For
yeah,
sure.
there's deals.
20
there's deals.
seconds.
Education's
20
gotta be a
seconds,
priority.
Lorraine.
Okay, one more question.
20 seconds.
What do you think about the riots going on right now, and how do you respond to them?
Look, I understand people are angry, and they are right to be angry. What we saw on camera is not justifiable. It is horrific and atrocious. Peaceful protest, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. But no, I wrote down what Representative John Lewis said today because I thought he said it so perfectly. He said, I know your pain, your rage, your sense of despair. Justice has been denied for far too long. Rioting, looting, and burning is not the way. Organize, demonstrate, sit in, stand up, vote. Be constructive, not destructive. By the way, that last line, that should be the rule for all our lives. We got to be constructive, not destructive.
Amen.
And when you
Thank
find a strong statement like that, you just end on a strong statement, on a good note. So I want to thank everybody
I'm
for
with
tuning
you.
in. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging out for an extra half an hour on a special show. Like I said,
It was great.
it wasn't regular circumstances. And thank you for I wanted to talk to you more on a journalistic thing because doing this is definitely, you have to balance personalities, egos, time. You have to balance everything.
It's
And then you have
hard.
to get the most out so for your listeners to get the most of. So it is definitely a daunting task, and I am exhausted after I
You did
finish.
great. You did great.
But
You
and I
did
want to
amazing,
thank
AJ.
and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have people tuning in from everywhere. A couple of new people: Tony Nix, Steven Simpson, the Maris Monet, Prince Robinson, Sonji West. What's going on? Prince Robinson. I said Eddie Johnson. James Cook, what's going on, sir? Nas Duncan, Mark Minnick, I think I said his name earlier. There was a few others.
There's several. There's hundreds others.
Anybody I didn't mention that you want to mention, if you can, real quick? Lorraine, you got anybody? Okay.
No.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. As always, you could be doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show, the home edition, on every Sunday, 6 to 8, usually on intermixradio.com. Tune in next week. I'm not sure. Next week we have, we're back with the New York 17 Congressional District, which is that Nia Lowy seat. And I believe we have Allison Fine, the candidate, on. We also this Friday have How to Police the Black Community Part 3, 11 a.m. Friday. You don't want to miss that. You go on Black Westchester if you miss parts 1 and 2. And we had a couple of special editions in between. Still working on the New Rochelle edition of Modern Day Hero Mondays of New Rochelle. Haven't pulled that together just yet. But stay tuned to Black Westchester. Like everybody else, we had to re-navigate all this and everything, but we are continuing to bring you the news with the Black point of view and continue to give you the real talk for the community since 2014, coming up on our 6-year anniversary. Until next time, peace.